Hi, my name is Kiona Sinks, and you're listening to the Real Truth Podcast, where we connect real life situations, real time, with diversity, equity, and inclusion, where I will talk to our leaders about real tangible change, their perspectives, and how we bridge the divide in our country, and how we can implement change every day in our communities. Thank you for tuning in. You're now watching the Real Truth Podcast, hosted by myself, Kiona Sinks. Well, welcome to the Real True Podcast, hosted by myself, Kiona Sinks. Thank you guys so much for joining. I see a couple people are jumping on. It's been a while, as usual. Things are crazy busy, but you're not here to listen to me. You're here to listen to these amazing individuals that I highlight here in Kansas City. And today I'm really excited because I get to talk to, I think in my mind and in my heart, two of just amazing people, incredible leaders, Joni Wickham and former Mayor Sly James, who have done tremendously so much for Kansas City and for our community. And we don't see them a lot now, but they are still keeping busy. They are still hustling. They're still grinding, and they're still making an impact for our city. And so I'm going to welcome them to this virtual platform. And we're really going to talk about just what they're up to and kind of their new endeavors that they have dived into since leaving the city office and just being out of the spotlight, which I'm sure they're not missing. So without further ado, I want to welcome former Mayor Sly James and Joni Wickham.
Hey, Kiona, how you doing?
Hey, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know you guys are extremely busy, and I just want to jump right in because I know we only have so much time. But Joni, I want to start with you. Obviously, last year was a lot. And then the year before, you and former Mayor Sly James, which I still feel like I should call him mayor, so I'm struggling with this. You guys did a lot for our city, and you have cultivated outside of that too a very dear and close relationship. Can you talk to us about, first you and Sly, how that came about, and then just what makes you guys so special as well coming out of the city office?
Sure. So I think our story is rooted in the beginning, at least, in the power of networking. I was working at the state capitol in Jefferson City when some mutual friends of Sly's and I called to let me know that the mayor-elect, this was back in the spring of 2011, that the mayor-elect of Kansas City was looking to fill his staff. I knew very little about Kansas City politics at that time, did not know Sly at all, didn't even know what he looked like, was pretty sure his real name was not, in fact, Sly James, could not understand how a trial attorney named Sly James could be a real person. And so when I got this phone call from my friend asking me to come interview with him, it was completely unexpected. And I wasn't really sure, honestly, that it was an opportunity that I should take. I wasn't exactly convinced that I would be any good at it. And within 5 minutes of meeting him, I just knew that his leadership vision was something that I could get behind, and was definitely something that I wanted to be part of. And so we worked together for 8 years. I was his chief of staff for almost 6. And it's highly unusual for a mayor and chief of staff to go into business together after working together in that sort of environment. Typically, you don't want to see that person anymore. You kind of run the opposite direction. But as I know we're going to talk about later, we have a lot in common. We're very different people, but we have a lot in common, and we work really well together.
That's awesome.
I want to point out, I don't know if you caught it or not, but that little moment of imposter syndrome, which you seldom hear from Joni, when she said, I didn't know if I'd be any good at it. Now, I know this is being recorded. I'd like to make sure that clip is saved.
I'll save it for you guys. And Sly, of course, you come with your own, charisma and just your background and just everything you've contributed to Kansas City. And it's tough. It's tough being in your position that you were as our former mayor and trying to balance also a lot of dynamics that might not people like me everyday living don't understand. And so 2020 gave us a year of just so much that we've taken in. Our lives have changed. What are your thoughts about that, and how has that changed your perspective as it relates to just public policy and a lot of things that have happened over the course of the year?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I'll tell you that being mayor was probably the professional honor of my life. It is a rare opportunity to actually do things that you can point to, touch, feel, be engage in, that have some sort of an impact on people. And to do that, you have to have surrounded yourself with quality people to work with on your staff. And Joni was the centerpiece of that quality. Chief of staff is regard of staff wrangling as well as mayor wrangling. And she did both very well. 2020, in a lot of different ways, exposed all of the things that we knew about but didn't talk about. We knew that there were inequities. We just didn't talk about them. Now we're forced to. We knew that there were issues of race that were out there and that impacted people, but we didn't have concrete examples that everybody was able to see. The white folks, the black folks, the Latino folks, that everybody was able to see. Now they're able to see it. Not only are they able to see it, they're able to quantify it in a way that hadn't been done before, and we're forced to deal with it. So 2020 on the bad side was a tough time for a lot of people, a very tough time. They struggled with basic necessities, needs, food, shelter, healthcare. It was also a very great time in terms of opportunity, an opportunity to do some self-examination, and then hopefully to impose some self-regulation that might help address some of those problems. So in every period of disruption, there's an opportunity for innovation. We're starting to see some innovation. Some of the innovation is not positive. Some of the innovation is take advantage of the situation and the fragmentation in order to sow seeds of stupidity, like a lot of our legislatures are doing. The eternal crowd of bozos that tend to think that rather than making it easier for people to exercise the franchise to vote, let's make it harder because it serves our political ends. So it exposed our really ugly underbelly as well as our good hearts, because a lot of other people, a lot of white folks went out on those streets and they were marching. And they marched in ways and in numbers that they had not previously marched before. When you can build that coalition and move forward together, you got a chance. And you got a chance to fight off the bozo crowd that believes that everything's a conspiracy against them personally. I can't hear you.
You would think I would know how to do this by now. I can't believe, Joni, thinking about, like, you were Mayor Sly James, chief of staff, bossing people around, telling people what to do. And as women, naturally, we do, as Sly mentioned, carry the imposter syndrome. Like, we don't like to elevate and meet the moment because there are so many internalized, basically, oppression that we as women face. Talk a little bit about that and how, you guys are, like you say, you're two separate people. You're white, he's black. You guys are partners, and we're going to talk about you guys' business. And then you have books that you dive into your own individual paths. But I want to hear from you about just that stigma, and as a woman, and what we've seen in society relating to that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as chief of staff, and even in positions before that, my goodness, working at the Missouri State Capitol is not necessarily paradise if you're a young woman. Certainly wasn't 10 years ago when I was there, and it definitely isn't now. But certainly I've navigated, as I'm sure you have, Kiona, and I just have to say that I think it's important to recognize that everything a middle-class white woman has to endure, that women of color have it 10 times more difficult. And so it's important, I think, to recognize the barriers that still exist for a lot of women across all sectors of this economy. Doesn't matter if you're working in city government or corporate America. There are still lots of different dynamics that we deal with that one would have hoped had disappeared a long time ago. For me, particularly in the last chapter of my career, I was benefited by having a very vocal, powerful male sponsor in Sly. One of my favorite stories that I love to tell, and I wrote about this in my book, was when I was probably 8 months pregnant and walked into a symposium with a bunch of economic development professionals, all of which were older white dudes. And I had worked on this symposium for weeks myself, putting together a media plan, policy options, talking to each of the people involved to make sure that they understood what the mayor wanted to get out of it, and making sure that the mayor understood where each of the other individuals were coming from. I worked so hard on this symposium, and I walk into the meeting, and they had a table for all of the participants with name placards and chairs, everybody but me. And it was very telling that even though I was the person who had talked to every one of the individuals there, even though I had actually brought them to that table, they had not seen fit. It never crossed their mind that maybe I should actually have a seat at the table. And so Sly threw a strategic spectacle, as you know he can do sometimes, and made sure that they realized that that was completely unacceptable. And so I think it's important for men to be aware of those circumstances and how critical and empowering it is for them to use their power to support women who are in their orbit.
Yeah. So how does that make you feel? Because this podcast is centered around how do two different people become partners. You and Joni are, I think, a poster child of that. When she says that, and knowing your position and your stature and what you've done and your influence, how do you use that or continue to use that in spaces now where we need more women at the table and also disrupting the status quo?
Well, you know, I have a very basic thought in my head that those of us who have faced discrimination face on in overt, subtle ways, explicit and implicit, we should also be able to recognize it when we see it focused elsewhere. And we should be the first group of people to stand up and say, no, that I don't know if I can say it. I'm going to say it anyhow. No, that shit ain't going. Okay. Okay. You can't do that here. All right. I am not by any stretch of the imagination perfect. I've learned over the years, but I've been benefited by being around a lot of strong women that I actually respect, and understanding that, frankly, they know a lot more about a lot of stuff than I do, and it would behoove me to listen. But the other thing about it too is that I simply respect people who do good work. I don't care who you are. And if you do good work, it's my job to make sure that A, I don't take credit for your work. B, I make sure other people know that you're doing good work. And C, I make sure that you're able to benefit from the good work that you've done. And sometimes that means that, unfortunately, you've done such a good job that you really need to go elsewhere because this platform is no longer big enough for you. I simply try to, and again, I'm certainly not even close to being perfect. I screw up all the time, and I forget the things that I should be remembering or should be innate. But I have been the beneficiary of being able to work with Joni and other strong and good women, and that is always inured to my benefit. So why in the hell would I ever want to do something that was against my own best interest? We have a unique relationship because we are different people. She's a petite, white, Southern woman who's cute. I am a tall, Denzel Washington lookalike.
I was going to say you're cute in your own right, but you just took it right out of my mouth.
But the bottom line is we're so different that we are similar. But we agree on basics. We agree on how people should be treated. We agree on issues of equity. We agree on getting the job done without a whole bunch of crap in the middle. We agree that we both have blind spots in our game and that the other person can help fill those blind spots so that we have a complete game. Those are basic things. And I'm fortunate to be able to work with Joni. And to have her not just as a work partner, but as a very dear friend. Men have a responsibility, particularly white men, because white men really are at the top of the food chain here. They have a responsibility to recognize their privilege and to make sure that that privilege is not held exclusively in their hands, but is shared by other people. They don't always do that because they don't want to give up the power that they have. But it is incumbent on those of us, people of color who know what it's like to be discriminated against, to never do it. It broke my heart when I saw a video of a black man attacking an Asian woman on the street. I just thought, how could you do that? You know, how could you do that when it, in different circumstances, that could have been you being attacked? Why would you visit that on somebody else? So that's how I basically approach it. And, you know, that was a very long answer to get very little out of it, but that's the basic bottom line.
But that's good, though. I appreciate you and Joni's responses. And I think more people should recognize the advantages, to your point, Sly, that when you're uplifting and elevating women in any space at any given point in time, it only elevates and make you more successful as a man, regardless if you're black or white. And so we fast forward, right? You guys like serve our city literally, like feet all in, hands dirty, the last day. What was you guys like feelings? I mean, because now you've been having these conversations about it's coming to the end, like what's next? You know, are we going to do something together? Are we going to embark on business endeavors? Talk about what that last term for you was like, Joni, and then Sly as well, and how you guys made the leap to start Wickham James Solutions.
Yeah, so we actually started talking about working together post mayor's office after the airport election in November 2017. And that thing was such an experience. I literally felt like we were in the trenches together every day with shrapnel and bombs and all kinds of stuff coming at us. And we were able to take what, I mean, everybody around us thought was an impossibility, and win that election with 76% of the vote. And we still liked each other, still liked working together. And we have very complementary skill sets. So we started talking then about what it would look like for us to continue working together outside the mayor's office. We both agreed that we wanted more flexibility than we ever had in the mayor's office. And we wanted more control over our work life. When you're a public servant, whether you're a mayor or a city staff person, you have to work with everyone who walks through your door, whether you want to or not, whether they are nice humans or not. And you have to work on every problem that comes through the door, whether you want to or not, whether it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning or Christmas Eve, it does not matter. And so we both wanted to find a scenario where we could have all that. And we definitely have with our firm, where we do communications work and public policy, government relations. Sly's a very accomplished mediator, and we have our books, and we do speaking engagements as well.
Well, you know, I mean, really, when you think about it, there aren't many partnerships like ours. When you look at the landscape, you may have a couple of white guys, a couple of black guys, a couple of white women, a couple of black women, some Latino folks, whatever. But you don't have the crossover gender, racial, age thing, all right? And you don't have the body of experience that we have. I'm not saying that that's the be all and end all, but it is unique. We came from a different sector, working together. We are totally different people in a lot of ways, just looking at us, but able to get the job done. That is a unique calling card. You know, to be able to, we check a lot of boxes on people's lists. Okay, we need a woman. Oh, we need a black guy. Well, hey, you got both. Two for the price of one. But, although the prices are going up. But at any rate.
I know that's right.
Well, you know, I mean, you either add more people or you make more money. One way or the other, you can make that choice. But at the end of the day, we recognize, first of all, that we really weren't going to be suited to work for anybody else. I was not going to go back to the day-to-day practice of law. I had offers to join a couple of different law firms, and I was like, you know, I left a large law firm in 1993 for a reason. I don't think that there's going to be a reason for me to return to that, although I'll listen. But we wanted to do something that basically was picked up on the threads that we had left in the office. First of all, neither of us cried on the way out the door.
No.
People of us cried on the way out the door. I think there might have been some high fives, maybe a few drinks, and then hopefully the next day after I went on vacation for a week, and the next day we were at work. We had this all lined up. We were ready to rock and roll. We planned, we got it done, and when we knew what we were doing as soon as we left that office, with no regrets, and feeling good about what we had done, and wishing that we had been able to do a little more, but there's only so much you can do. But we work in areas, I would say if you broad sense, we work in areas of public policy. We do things that we think will affect the lives of people in public policy. Joni's worked with She Should Run, with United We on the Appointments Project, the work that she does in communications for people with launch code and things of that nature, what I'm doing with Kaufman Foundation, and what we're both doing with Ignite Cities, etc. All of that stuff is focused on how are we going to make the lives of citizens wherever they are a little bit better. That's a great calling. It is something you can get very enthusiastic and passionate about. Plus, it has real positive impact on the people that you're trying to serve. That's what we have been doing in City Hall. That's what we're doing now for the large part here. We're just being paid better for it, and we get to pick our clients.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a perfect way to explain exactly where you guys are. And you're right, Sly. I don't think there's another duo in Kansas City or across the country for that matter. And I don't really know a lot what's going on around the country and what you and Joni do, but I do know that you guys are very, very good at what you do. In Olivia Pope style, just Kansas City, and I'm sure other markets as well. But you, Sly, this is called the Real Truth Podcast, and I did a rebrand earlier this year. I launched this right prior to George Floyd, and people were just sitting at home and just, it literally became the show. Like, I was like, okay, I didn't ask for all that, but if y'all want to watch this podcast and listen to people share what's on their heart, great. But I've admired you, not just, and granted, any politician is always faced with opposition, anybody. Sure. And you make decisions that are not popular, that everyday citizens don't understand, but now everybody loves the streetcar. And we're still benefiting off of the graces of your contributions to Kansas City. And so you as a Black man, and I said, I'm going to ask Sly this today, you as a Black man and what you've experienced, you know, even for us as Black people, there was opposition. And many would say you have not done enough for Black Kansas City. Sure. What is your thoughts on that, right? Because we look at the Kansas City today, and a lot of things that I can take pride in as a everyday Kiona, this is my world, I get to design a streetcar. Well, had it not been for you, there would be no Negro Leagues, Buck O'Neill streetcar riding down Main and getting people to one spot to the next. So what do you have to say about that? Or what are your thoughts or reflections?
Well, yeah, I'm very much aware of the fact that there's a lot of people who didn't think that I did a lot for any of them. I mean, frankly, you go up north and they think you're doing too much south. You go up south, they think you're doing too much north. You go east and they're saying you're doing all the stuff on the west and vice versa. You know, I learned a long time ago, you're not going to be able to please everybody, so why try? Mm-hmm. And if it bothers you that people don't like you or don't like what you're doing, then you probably shouldn't be in this business. Frankly, I never gave a shit. I didn't really care. We knew what we were doing. We knew how it could benefit. And so while people are complaining that we're not doing enough, what I was trying to do was to make sure that little Black and brown kids knew how to read so that they wouldn't have to struggle. And that's why we set up Turn the Page. Sure. That's why we went out and tried to do pre-K, universal pre-K, because it would benefit mostly Black and brown kids in this city. And where we got a lot of opposition was from Black people. It's going to raise the price of a can of peas at the grocery store by a penny. Well, really? Seriously? You're going to argue about a damn penny and your kids are sitting over here going through the same poverty cycle that you went through, your parents went through, everything else? Do you care? We tried to do things that were foundational. We had to buy the Linwood Shopping Center in order to get a grocery store over there because, frankly, the Black folks who were complaining the most hadn't gotten it done in the last 20 years. So we managed to get that done. The Black folks fought the streetcar line being extended on Linwood, which would have brought prosperity to them, free transportation to them. And then we have white folks that were fighting against it as well. And then now that it's done, everybody, it was their idea in the first damn place. So at the end of the day, we knew what we needed to get done to move this entire city forward. The streetcar has brought benefits across the entire city. People may not recognize it, but the more money that goes taxes to city coffers, the better off we are. The hotel that people say, oh, we don't need that. Look at the pandemic. You know what? It's filling up. And as a matter of fact, if you go there some nights when the baseball teams are in town, you might be able to catch the baseball teams because that's where they stay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Filling up. But the bottom line is we attack this from a standpoint of what do we need to make sure that this city, for everybody in this city, is getting the resources and recognition that it deserves, and that we are doing things that are going to benefit people on a foundational level and long term. Google. If it wasn't for Google, we wouldn't have recognized the digital divide. It was Google coming in that caused us to say, we can't have this. We got to do something different. So we started working on that, and it's borne fruit. But I look at it very simply, Kiona, and I'll stop this tirade that I'm on. I look at it very simple. We have people in this city who have lived through generations of poverty because they have been undereducated, underemployed, and underappreciated. I wanted to go back to some of the foundational things that are necessary to make sure that we can stop that. And that means focusing on our kids. And if we can't get our kids straight and get them right, then we're not being very good adults. So that's where I wanted to focus. And at the same time, we did a lot of stuff that brought prosperity to every segment of this town in some way or shape or another. And over a period of time, we got more and more support from people saying, okay, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Now I see some folks that were opposed to the streetcar and they're arguing, why can't we have streetcars? I said, because you voted it down, fool.
But I love it. I love your real truth, Sly. And I before I jump to Joni, I will add also you forgot the Urban Youth Academy. That is such a catalyst for our community where I go every single day, just came from. And now kids are able to literally walk from the Youth Academy to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and see ball players who look like them, who were courageous and persevered through so much travesty in our country. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to your resume. Don't forget the Urban Youth Academy from you and Joni.
Very quick story. There was a time during the genesis of the Urban Youth Academy while it was being built, we were approached by Major League Baseball that wanted to drop the word urban. And I said, if you drop that word from urban, we withdraw our participation, because it's already suspected that we're going to have kids driving in from Johnson County and taking it over. I said, if you do that, you're just telling them that maybe that's true. And I said, this is the way that Dayton envisioned this is urban. The way that the Royals envisioned this is urban. The way I envisioned it is urban. And we're keeping urban in there because we all know that urban is really kind of a euphemism that means a lot of different things. But without it, it means that something entirely different. So that's a fantastic program. And again, where's it focused? It's focused on our kids.
Absolutely.
Giving them a shot that they didn't have. That's where we should be focusing a lot of our attention. While we fight the current battles, we've got to build for the future, and our future is in our kids.
That's awesome. Joni, do you have any reflections or anything to add to, your contributions as chief of staff, and then now being on the other side of the strategic future of Kansas City? And now, because like Sly said, you guys are just basically doing the same thing, getting paid more and just picking who you want to work with. So
yeah, not a bad deal.
Yeah, it's not. And you get to see, now you're seeing the fruits of y'all's labor. And how does that make you feel, Joni?
First of all, it was so interesting for me to have the experience working with Sly. After having worked in federal government and state government, I've worked in politics all my life, to work for an elected official who truly was, and still is, who subscribes to a servant leadership perspective and who only was geared towards serving the community, not running for the next office. And what that meant was all the political capital that he had. I mean, I remember looking at polls where his favorability was like 80%. That is unheard of. That's crazy. Wow. And his willingness to use every ounce of it To get stuff done for Kansas City was unheard of. We ran 18 elections and won 16 of them in 8 years. Usually you have an elected official who wants to save some of that stuff for running for Senate or governor or whatever. We didn't have to worry about that. We could use every drop of political capital to do all the great things that we were able to do. So I am really, really proud of that. And Sly hates the L word, legacy. He hates it. But that in and of itself, that servant leadership attitude and perspective, that is the type of legacy that we need more of when it comes to elected officials. So I'm very proud of everything that we were able to do, for sure. And I will say this on the issues of race. I thought I knew what racism was. Growing up in the South, I grew up in a very rural area in the middle of a tobacco field, very racist perspectives all around me, very closed-minded. I thought I knew what racism was until I started working closely with Sly and traveling across the country with him. Girl, you should see the look on some people's faces when we walk into a hotel elevator together, when we are walking beside each other on an airplane. It is just striking, the looks that we get sometimes. In 2021, it ain't 1930.
I just love y'all, and y'all said so much, and I think it's made me change the way that I look at Kansas City, and it's made me respect and admire you both so much more for, I'm young, so I got a lot of more life to live, and I'm learning every single day.
I think she just called me old.
But we all knew that anyway.
But it's been incredible to just really, I think for me, if you take the politics out of it, just looking at human beings for human beings and their contributions to our community. And after year 2020, I mean, you would be remiss not to. And so you appreciate, things like that you guys are mentioning so much more. But that's my rant. I won't go on. Joni, right now in your business, Wickham Solutions, tell us about the day-to-day with you and Sly and what that's been like so far coming out of the pandemic.
So at Wickham James Strategies Solutions, we have some projects that Sly kind of works on himself. We have some projects that I work on kind of by myself. And then we have projects that we work on together. And those are probably my favorite for a whole bunch of reasons. But we've maintained the pace of our business even through COVID. No one wants to start a business and then 6 months later experience a global pandemic. Those were a few scary days there. But we've gotten busier and busier every month, which is unreal. It's really unreal. So life is good. It's been an interesting few months. My second grader has been home for 14 months and just went to summer school yesterday. So first time she'd been in a classroom in 14 months. So I kind of feel like I have a new lease on life.
That's amazing. How about you, Sly?
The interesting thing is that you actually have a little more time to actually think. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, and when you're in the mayor's office, things come at you. Sometimes they come at you like a feather, and sometimes they come at you like a freight train followed by an 18-wheeler, followed by a guy on a motorcycle. And it's all over the place, and you don't know what's going to happen from day to day, so you have to be nimble, which, again, I can't tell you how important it is to being nimble, to have a group of people you work with on your staff that are able to handle it without falling apart. Because there's a lot of people, and we did see an occasional meltdown, but there's a lot of people who would just say, no, I can't do this. I can't handle it. But to have a group of people who you can turn to and say, all right, we got this problem. We need to get started on this, and turn your back and walk out and know that the work was being done. That's cool stuff. So I attribute that to their own personal commitment, but also attribute that to the leadership of a good chief of staff who is able to keep them on point while still juggling balls in their own mind. Now, our day-to-day business is really fascinating because we get to meet all sorts of very interesting people. And Kiona, you are certainly one of them, and we've enjoyed getting to know you better over time and to see what you do in your job and how you support what I think is perhaps the most underappreciated, fantastic museum in the country. However, I think the underappreciated is starting to turn thanks to your efforts and Bob's efforts. So thank you very much for that. But our life here is one of constant exploration. We've got this opportunity. Do we want to take it? What are we talking about? Here's something else we can do. We're working with Harvard. We're working with Bloomberg. We're working with folks out in San Francisco with Joni, and in DC with She Should Run, and the Kauffman Foundation, and all sorts of people. So we are not only giving, but we're learning. Our repertoire is expanding rapidly. It's like somebody's opened us up and pouring new stuff in, and we're learning all the time. So it's exciting and it's stimulating. And that's what we had gotten used to in the office, was because no days were alike. And frankly, no days are alike now. And that's exactly what we wanted to have happen. Except again, there are some times when we were in office, you take the entire ocean that flows in without any ability to get out of it. Now we can say, nah, we don't want to do that. Thanks a lot for calling, but you might try these other people. We're not doing that kind of stuff. It's nice to be able to pick your clients and your problems.
And it's also nice to read the news and say, oh, thank you, Jesus, that's not my problem.
I mean, I couldn't imagine, anybody in any city, any state, just experiencing this year under such just unnormal circumstances of any kind. Just very crazy. But I wanted to ask you guys, because believe it or not, we're almost like at an hour or 30 minutes, close to 35, and want to be respectful of you guys' time. But in all of these nuances and things that you both have mentioned about partnership, relationship, being two different people, but there's a lot of similarities in the pod. Joni, what would you say that kind of keeps you and Sly, in sync with one another? Because I hear you both saying, especially with the scope of work that you both do every single day, people are dependent on y'all. Like, y'all got a lot of big decisions to make and to ensure or to, give resources or point people in the right direction, because you guys have the expertise in your experiences. So what do you think keeps you and Sly just really focused and structured to move forward and to keep that perspective amongst y'all's relationship? Because that's the critical piece that is the success to this huge puzzle in my eyes.
Yeah. As a very baseline, Sly and I share the same values. And when you share the same values as your business partner, everything else, works itself out. I think we have different skill sets. They're very complementary, but they're different. We also have shared interests, and we both like to get things done. We'll start talking on the phone sometimes early in the morning, and I'll talk to him again at 10 o'clock at night. We do whatever it takes to get things done. That's how it was in the mayor's office, and that's how it is now for our clients. But at a very basic level, we have shared values, and that's an important foundation for any sort of relationship.
Let me add a couple of things to that. One thing is that I think we both understand each other's personalities, and I think we understand each other's rhythm. I am not necessarily always the most warm and cuddly person. I'm not. I recognize that. I know it. I tend to be. Joni is much more circumspect and diplomatic than I am. I am sometimes what people might refer to as a blunt instrument, and she knows how to avoid being hit by it, but also how to use it. But the other thing about it that I think is absolutely important is that there is a level of personal respect and admiration and the willingness to recognize what each of us has accomplished within each other. But we are also very engaged, not in a creepy, strange way, but we know each other's families. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, we are engaged on a broader level than just, hey, I'm showing up at the office and we're going to work together in that project going my way and you're going yours. We don't do that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I know her daughter. I know Fred. She knows my kids and she knows my wife. We've been in each other's homes. We've eaten meals together. We've gone out drinking together. We've done stuff together. We are friends in every true sense of the word. And when you are friends who understand each other's fallacies and idiosyncrasies, then and you're willing to forgive the occasional stupidity. And Joni, I forgive you. I'll just say that up front now. I forgive you for all of those things.
He knows that's BS.
You can do a lot of stuff if you start with respect, understanding, friendship, and a genuine desire to succeed. So we've got a lot going for us. We're very fortunate in that respect. And frankly, that's why we're a hell of a team.
I just love you both just for your admiration for each other. And I think you said it, Joni, just the values and just being on the same page, which makes you both that much more successful together. And Sly, I think the most thing that I respect so much about you, and of course, Asia, one of my dear friends, holds the same way, but in her own personality. You guys are just real. Like, you're not going to be Kansas City nice, as I mentioned. You're just going to be like, no, I don't like it, and just move on. And I just feel like we need more transparency. It's like, why do we keep entertaining things or, not speaking at the table or showing up when our voices are needed? And if we don't say anything, history has shown us that we haven't gotten that far. So why would we not say anything? Absolutely. And I think it's so frustrating. For me, my last question would be centered around this: young people who are up and coming and passing that torch, because we'll have people like you and Joni. He'll say, "Oh, we're working hard. We want to invest into young professionals, or we want to make sure the future is bright." But doing it with your actions is so much different. It's what you've done for Joni in endorsing that, and also not allowing all of the nuances of, oh, she's white. It's like, if it's in you and your character, you'll just do it because that's just who you are. And I think that's what's separating a lot of people right now as we go through this change, and we've changed. Like, not only the change, we've all changed. And I think that's for the better of our community and what we do every day.
Well, I think that change is inevitable. But the one thing that I think that we learned in office is people don't like the way things are, but they absolutely hate change.
That's true.
It's true.
Change is hard for people. I happen to like change. I think change is exciting. I wouldn't want to do the same damn thing every day. If you get real comfortable with the same old, why bother to change clothes? I mean, they're there.
Yeah.
Why take them off? Why put something else on? I could wear this forever. It's a little funky after a while.
Joni, I see what you're doing with every day. And this is exciting. And I can't wait to see you guys like out in the public. Hopefully we get to chat or have coffee, or you guys come down to the museum. Slide's changed a lot. So you need to come back and see us. Joni, we need to bring baby girl and hubby.
Yeah, we really need to do that. I'll email you. We definitely have to do that.
Yes. Thank you both so much for sharing your truth. Is there any last and parting words of wisdom that you would like to leave us with?
I'm a big proponent and a big fan of being comfortable in your own skin and living your life with authenticity. Anything else takes too much energy, I think. And it's hard to live a fulfilling life, no matter what you choose to do as a career, if you're not being authentic and comfortable in your own skin.
Two things. First of all, I want to say, you said normal, something about normal. There is no normal. There is no normal that I know that would allow for the last 4 years of presidential politics. That's not normal. There is no normal that accompanies people who were threatened in their own governmental chamber and then deny that it ever happened and want to protect it. That's not normal. There is no normal where people believe that conspiracies are truth and truth is itself a conspiracy. None of that stuff is normal. There is no normal anymore. If there is going to be a normal, it needs to be reinvented. And that new normal has to include everybody, has to be equitable, has to be non-racist. It has to be all those things. So when we're talking about normal, I try to remember there ain't no damn normal. What we used to say was normal. I ain't going back to that because we know that normal sucked. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
normal was in and of itself inequitable, prejudiced, disadvantageous to a lot of people. So that wasn't normal either. We haven't achieved normal. But I do want to say to you, I have a great deal of respect for you doing this and for inviting us on. I think you are a person who has serious superstar potential. When you realize it, then you will take off like a shining star. You are a person who I think has the ability to lead. And I hope that you find the right position to do that because, frankly, you ain't normal.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Well, I just want to say that I don't take it lightly. And I know that it's a path of very few, as my grandmother would say, that, we walk, and I have identified that for myself, Sly. And I think I've just been so blessed. I mean, you're looking at somebody that, just 2 years ago, I was evicted from my apartment, not because I didn't want to pay my bills. It was just, I don't come from, privilege and having these things and building it big brick by brick. It's just a reality. So I'm grateful for people like you. I'm grateful for people like Joni. I'm grateful for people like Bob, who not just told me, hey, like, this is what you should do. You have modeled it with your actions. Whether I talk to you every day or not, that is still something that I can look at every single day and be inspired to not give up and to continue to move forward. So I really appreciate you both coming on. And I don't get to do this often as well. Thanks to Bob, because he's a good boss. So letting me leave the office, come talk to Sly. I'm like, I'm going to go talk to Mayor Sly James and Joni. Oh, okay. Tell him I said hello. So he says hello.
All right. Cool.
Well, hey, thank you both so much and have a great day.
And we will. And
Take
you
care.
have a great day. And just remember that you have the power to really have power. And I'm hoping to see that because I look at you and I look at my daughter and I say, geez, boy, I tell you what, I don't know why people were fighting women. I know a couple of young women who just rock and do a lot of stuff. And part of that is because I had the opportunity to work with a young woman. Well, she's not so young anymore, who does well.
Yes. And we will pull up Mayor Sly James. Let me tell you, I got a little gangster in me and I'm not playing. So if you need us to pull up, we coming. Just give me a call.
I'm down. All right.
All right. Thank you both so much.
Pleasure.
Take care. Bye, Kiona.
You too.
Bye.
Hey, thank you guys so much for listening to the Real Truth Podcast hosted by myself. Thank you for listening to former Mayor Sly James and Joni Wickham for this amazing conversation. You can subscribe to this podcast. You can follow on all platforms, wherever you get it, continually to have more dialogues and conversations as such. I look forward to welcoming you back whenever I do these, which is very seldomly now these days. But thank you so much and have a great day.